Update 3.1 introduces new weapons as well as weapon upgrades. We have Seliph, Tailtiu, Deirdre, and Julia. This batch has some exciting and interesting new effects, so let's get right into it. So Seliph gets a completely new base effect for his TYRFING. It gets rid of its pretty disappointing defense boost when on low HP effect, and has replaced it with something I don't think we've seen in the game yet. So if Seliph starts a fight with 50% or more HP, then he essentially gets access to a fully charged Miracle special. If you're unfamiliar, Miracle is a 5-turn special that prevents your unit from dying to one fatal attack and leaves them on 1 HP. This can happen once per combat only, and you can't stack it with another Miracle special, even though that doesn't really work anyway. Now this is very unique in terms of weapon effects. Not only is Miracle pretty rare to see, but it's tied to a weapon, and this opens up a ton of very unique build options. Before I get carried away, if you decide to give Seliph the special upgrade for 200 Divine Dew, TYRFING gets an attack and defense bond effect. This gives Seliph plus 5 attack and defense whenever he is next to an ally. As you can see from Seliph's stats, two of his best traits are his decent 34 attack and 30 defense. His 47 HP is very good, but works oddly with his new TYRFING. On one hand, Seliph is very hard to one-shot even if he's taking a magic attack from a blue mage, which means he will survive most encounters thanks to the Miracle effect. However, once this happens, or if Seliph dips below 50% HP, it might be tough to bring him back over that halfway mark. Even a strong healing special like Aether might not be enough. However, Seliph will make fast friends with any healer with Rehabilitate, since that healing skill will fully heal him if he is forced to use the Miracle effect. Unfortunately, because of Seliph's very low base speed, he will be getting doubled a lot, and that means the Miracle effect will be tested very frequently. Now for builds, there are far too many things to try and will probably need testing. However, if you want to play it rather safe, then playing to Seliph's innate strengths is a wise move. I think a physical tank setup with the usual skills such as steady breath, close defense, or even more attack and defense bond skills will do very well. Of course, quick riposte is there to retaliate since Seliph will double on his own very rarely. The TYRFING Miracle effect can be seen as a safety net for times where Seliph is forced to take a rogue mage attack or something unexpected. Now, I think it's possible for this new TYRFING to find success for Aether raids if you like stalling strategies. While you cannot have Miracle activate 2 times in a fight, TYRFING's Miracle effect gets used first before the special version. So with something like Warding Breath, Seliph can eat hits, hopefully at least survive with TYRFING's Miracle, and at the same time start charging up his actual Miracle special. Now, Miracle does not work if your unit is on 1 HP, so with Mystic Boost, Seliph can heal at 6 HP after every battle. With this, even if TYRFING's ability activates, Seliph can use Miracle again in the next fight. Now, Seliph has a lot of options to regain HP, especially in recent times. He can be paired with a healer, and now we have Air plus the THORON'S granting healing every turn. Same goes for Aether Raid's Healing Tower. This is very much just me theory crafting ideas, and I would be happy to hear about any other ways to use this new TYRFING. Now, something that I actually think would be pretty hilarious, albeit very expensive to create, would be using TYRFING with Distant Counter, Wrath, and the Quick Riposte Sacred Seal, and then the Vengeance special. Seliph may now be one of the very extremely few units who could run Vengeance to some degree of effectiveness. My thinking with this build is that Seliph has a ton of HP, which means as long as he doesn't get one shot, he will survive enemy double attacks thanks to TYRFING. With Quick Riposte, Seliph gets to attack twice himself, and we are banking on the enemy hitting him twice. If this happens, Vengeance gets fully charged and Wrath is active. On Seliph's second attack, he can unleash a 30+ damage special proc. Pair this with a Rehabilitate healer and you have a continuous combo every turn. The major weakness is letting Seliph be attacked multiple times in one phase, so it's definitely not foolproof. I'm really hoping someone comes up with a cool build for this new TYRFING. Honestly, the special upgrade is nice but not too exciting. If you have a cool idea or you see something that is actually effective, then please send it my way. I would love to take a look. Next up, we have Tailtiu with a brand new weapon. She gets the Tome of Thoron, and its effect reads, at the start of every turn, if unit's HP is less than or equal to 75%, and unit's attack triggers special, grants special cooldown count -1, and deals +10 damage when special triggers. This effect is the same as Wrath 3. It's important to note that ranged units like Tailtiu cannot inherit the Wrath B skill, so Tome of Thoron already has a unique niche. If you pick the special upgrade for Tome of Thoron, it gets the rather simple effect of Darting Blow 3. This grants +6 speed during combat on every initiation. Taking a look at Tailtiu's stats, she has 32 attack and 35 speed, pretty good for a mage and definitely works with the Tome of Thoron. She has a couple of interesting unique build options. So first off, this tome synergizes so well with the classic Fury plus Desperation combo. Desperation gets Tailtiu instant follow-up attacks, and while Darting Blow plus Fury 3 is giving her plus 9 speed to work with. It only works when Tailtiu reaches under 75% HP, but that's where Fury comes in. It gives her extra stats, which helps her take any first hits better, and then it safely lowers his HP into Desperation range. So normally this combo would be used with a Blade Tome, which Tailtiu actually already comes with. However, Tome of Thoron offers some crazy setups thanks to Wrath. Obviously, if Tailtiu gets to attack twice and proc her special, she gets that sweet plus 10 true damage on top. Now to accelerate this, add Flashing Blade. She can use her high speed to get even more cooldown reduction to increase the chances she activates her special during Desperation's 2-hit attack. The real kicker is what happens when Tailtiu starts to turn in Wrath range. She would get -1 special cooldown reduction and be in Desperation range. Run a 3-turn special like Luna, proc Flashing Blade in Desperation, and Tailtiu can absolutely fry enemies with 2 attacks, a Luna proc, and then the plus 10 true damage on top of that. This can't be repeated in the same turn, so something like Special Spiral would be better, but then you lose out on Desperation, which is a safer option. Speaking of Special Spiral, Tome of Thoron even has its own unique playstyle with this skill. The same idea is applying here, but Tailtiu loses out on Desperation. This potentially loses her some kills when she doesn't one-shot her opponent. However, with Special Spiral and Wrath active, she can have a 3-turn special immediately for her first hit. So the trade-off here is a more potent first attack with Special Spiral versus having a safer 2-hit combo with Desperation and Flashing Blade. Special Spiral plus Tome of Thoron has another trick up its sleeve, however, and that's using both with an AoE special. Tailtiu can recharge an AoE special once per turn, and she can't instantly spam them like Ophelia can. She does this by activating the special and making an attack, reducing it from 4 cooldown to 3. Special Spiral kicks in after the fight to make it 3 to 1 cooldown, and then on the next turn, Wrath reduces it from 1 to fully charged. At first it would seem like someone like Ophelia gets the better end of this deal, but Tome of Thoron's Wrath effect actually does grant the plus 10 damage for every space hit by the area of effect specials. This is pretty awesome. I think Tome of Thoron is pretty crazy, but just like any Wrath user, Tailtiu does want to be in that low HP range to get the most mileage. This is a great new weapon, and Tailtiu is a pretty decent mage herself, plus she is a 3 to 4 star summon. Now moving on to Deirdre, her Divine Naga got a nice update. If you upgrade Divine Naga with any variant, it technically has a new base effect. It's still effective against dragons, and it still neutralizes all field buffs on enemies. However, now it also nullifies any foe's skills that calculate damage using the lower of foe's defense or resistance. Basically, it nullifies adaptive damage. This is an absolutely vital buff to Deirdre. Before Deirdre was a clear dragon counter, Divine Naga got extra damage and her high base res stat could tank their attacks easily. However, once adaptive damage hit the scene, Deirdre got hit hard. Even though she has a lot of damage against dragons, if she got hit once, she was pretty much gone since her defense stat is so much lower than her res stat. This won't be the case anymore. Now the special upgrade for Divine Naga states at the start of combat, if Deirdre's res stat is greater than or equal to the foe's res stat plus 3, then she gets plus 3 to all stats during combat. To make things simpler, if Deirdre has 3 or more res than her opponent, she gets extra stats. This comparison occurs before combat, so it only uses base res stats and field buffs. It will not include in combat buffs such as drive res. Deirdre has 35 base resistance, which is pretty high, and if you have a plus res Deirdre, then you should be very happy. She should be able to get this stat boost against most enemies, and it's a nice general buff when fighting anyone. Now for builds, Deirdre pretty much gets a buff to any of her old builds. She will continue to be a great magic damage tank with her high base resistance. She has quick riposte already, and if she gets doubled by an enemy mage, she can retaliate with a charged iceberg. Deirdre has speed ploy by default, which is quite rare, and you can give her any ploy sacred seal to run double ploys. With the plus 3 to all stats from her special refine, Deirdre can actually get a sneaky stat advantage on her enemies. Since she can cancel adaptive damage, she can also take hits from dragons, and that is very nice in sticky situations. If you run double ploys, then you might want a res increasing A skill to further boost your chances. Now something I think has merit is plus speed Deirdres who focus on more speed. Normally Deirdre doesn't have the highest base speed, and if she fails to one-shot a dragon, she probably won't double them to finish them off. With plus 3 speed from upgrade Divine Naga, plus 3 speed from Fury 3, and then debuffing enemies with minus 5 speed from Speed Ploy, I do think Deirdre is a force to be reckoned with. This is a setup that trades one-shotting dragons for a safer 2-shot setup. Without needing to worry about adaptive damage, Deirdre is free to take the counterattacks from dragons before finishing them off with a second attack. Now, to go along with this setup, you can run things like Chill Res for added insurance, and then the Brazen Attack and Res Sacred Seal, since Fury will eventually chip her HP down anyway. Like our first build, this one isn't just geared to only dragon fighting. Deirdre and Divine Naga can take on multiple threats. The ability to neutralize all field buffs is a huge bonus that I see a lot of people pass over. Even though I agree that combat buffs are strong at the moment and aren't affected by this, I still mostly see field buffs on many teams. For our third build, we have something for our player phase enthusiasts. If you want Deirdre to take out dragons in one hit, it's certainly possible with skills like Death Blow, Chill Res, and of course any attack buffs you get. Divine Naga gets rid of any res buffs the enemy has and also gives another +3 attack as well. Overall, this setup is looking to one-shot blue, green, and colorless dragons, maybe the red ones too. The risk of not one-shotting a dragon is reduced now because adaptive damage is gone, so these types of builds do become safer to run. If you just want Deirdre to be a pure ranged dragon killer, then stacking attack may be what you want. On to our last new weapon upgrade. Now, you've probably heard the most hype for Julia's new Naga tome. I would say that it's got a very powerful new refine, but it might be the least interesting to talk about out of our selection today. That's not a bad thing, it's just that its refine does one thing very well. Let's see why that may be. So first off, Naga retains its own effects, but it got a small boost. It's effective against dragons, and when an enemy initiates on Julia, she now gets +4 defense and resistance compared to +2 before. Can't really complain about this. Now, the real special effect comes in the refined upgrade. In combat against a dragon foe, disables the foe skills that calculate damage using lower of foe's defense or res, and Julia is able to counterattack regardless of foe's range. Oh boy. For 200 Divine Dew, Julia gets to stop adaptive damage from dragons, and she gets close counter. Some important things to note, in game, at least for the English translation, currently Naga's Refine mentions nullifying Wrathful Staff. This has been confirmed a mistake by Intelligent Systems. Naga does not stop Wrathful Staff. Also, Julia only gets close counter against dragons specifically. So this weapon and upgrade turns Julia into a dedicated enemy phase dragon counter. She stops their adaptive damage, gets +4 resistance, and she now has close counter to fight back. Julia is a very good unit now if you are specifically looking for dragon counters. Since the close counter upgrade only works on dragon enemies, there's not a ton of crazy things you can do. I think the most common way to utilize it will be to build toward a heavy enemy phase setup and just let Julia tank dragon attacks. Attack and res bond and something like Fierce Stance Sacred Seal will give Julia tons of attack to retaliate back. She gets +4 res from Naga itself and the +5 res from attack and res bond, so that's a +9 extra res to work with too. Julia should easily be able to take dragon attacks, then use close counter to hopefully one-shot them back. For B skills, you can use Vantage or Quicker Post depending on what you like. Either way, this should be the easiest way to use the new Naga, stack attack and resistance, and let the dragons walk into Julia. If you want a more aggressive approach, Julia can run the same attack stacking build as Deirdre to one-shot dragons on the player phase. Julia has higher base attack than Deirdre, so technically she will be better for this specific playstyle. However, with the close counter effect, Julia gets some enemy phase utility. Against multiple dragons, she can take out one on the player phase, then tank the next one and possibly kill them too on the enemy phase. If you want, Julia can rock Quicker Post to secure kills on tankier dragons. If you want some flexibility in your dragon killing methods, then this build may be more suitable than the first one. Now, I just wanted to shortly debate on if Naga is better than Divine Naga or vice versa. Essentially, both of them nullify adaptive damage, allowing Julia and Deirdre to be the true dragon counters they were intended to be. I think the close counter upgrade for Julia makes her the better dragon killer because it takes advantage of the typically weaker player phase power of most dragon builds. Her high attack will also secure more KOs. For Divine Naga, Deirdre gets to nullify all field buffs, and she gets a stat boost as well, assuming her res is 3 points higher than her opponent's. This makes Deirdre better into more generalized threats. For example, I like to use her as a mage tank, and she is still going to be good at killing dragons. I would say that it's possible that Divine Naga with close counter A skill might be better than Naga with whatever A skill Julia wants to run. That said, getting close counter fodder will be tougher than getting 200 Divine Dew unless you still have the free Takumi. I think Julia with the regular Naga upgraded gets a ton of value out of that 200 Divine Dew if all you want is a super dedicated dragon counter. Divine Naga might do more against non-dragon foes, but without close counter you are forced to only attacking them on the player phase. Now if you are a Julia user, luckily she gets access to Divine Naga and even can get the new upgrade. It's very expensive Divine Dew wise, but if you really want, Julia can run on both tomes depending on what you need. Deirdre technically uses Divine Naga better though, since her base res is higher. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing these new weapons in action. I think we just got some very unique upgrades this time around, and there's so much more I could talk about regarding TYRFING or Tome of Thoron. TYRFING especially has so many interesting possibilities, but I do think they will need testing before we can say what works and what doesn't work. As for Julia and Deirdre, both of them only really need the ability to nullify adaptive damage, but they got extra effects too. The two of them will now be able to fulfill their dragon killing roles much better. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video.